After nearly 6 decades of powering our homes, Aberthaw has been switched off for the final time. The last coal-fired power station in Wales is closed. In the late 1950s, construction work began that would transform part of the South Wales coastline forever. By the time the site was completed, the Aberthaw chimneys had become local landmarks, and the station had become a major employer. When Nick Edwards started working at Aberthaw as a craft apprentice in the early 1980s, there were at least 1,500 people working on the site.
It was crazy. We had loads and loads of characters here, and just about every conceivable trade you could think of. If you had a problem with your car or with your house, there was always somebody here who'd be able to help you. We even had an unqualified doctor here as well for medical advice, that you could go to. So there was lots of different characters, lots of different trades. It was a very much a community down here.
What's it about? Then you put this one on manual. Yep.
The number of staff reduced over the years, especially after the closure of Aberthaw A power station in the mid-1990s. And while the plant didn't produce energy regularly in the latter few years of its life, it did still have its moments to shine. In 2018, the UK saw some of the worst winter weather in living memory. It was during the Beast from the East that Aberthaw was called on to save the day and help keep the lights on. But it almost didn't go to plan.
I suppose that particular time we were going through a difficult period of trying to get the units available. We hadn't had a lot of investment in them. They were breaking down left, right and centre. We just couldn't get anywhere with them. And then we had the title of Beast from the East came, and it just all came good. We had no explanation as to why. Call it fate, call it whatever you like, but the plant just behaved itself. All 3 units came up, full power, maximum generation, and we stayed like that for about 3 weeks while the Beast from the East was there. That was quite good for us, because we'd struggled for so long, hadn't got anything going right, and it just came right at that moment. And the irony was when the Beast from the East finally went, all 3 of them broke down. I think on the same day that the storm passed and it was starting to get better, all 3 generators broke down one after the other, and we were back. So that was quite an unusual period,
Like many others who grew up in the shadow of the plant, the station's last manager felt the familial pull to Aberthaw.
My father worked at Aberthaw Power Station before me. As I was growing up in Llantwit Major, it was a major employer in the area, and I started here straight from school, as many other people did, and it became clear to me that I wasn't just joining a place of work, I was actually joining an institution.
Aberthaw was a mainstay of industry in South Wales for many years, as a considerable buyer of Welsh coal. But as the environmental regulations tightened on burning fossil fuels, faster burning coal from Russia was imported to reduce emissions. Just one of the many transitions the site went through over the years.
Nothing lasts forever, and you have to learn to move on, whether you want to or not. Sometimes you can do something about change, and other times you can't, and this is one of those moments where you can't.
I started here in 1987, and when I started, almost all generation in the UK, if it wasn't nuclear, was coal generation, and now we're seeing the last few coal-fired power stations closing and a huge rise in renewables. So I think the change has been continuous. I think lots of people now sense that the rate of change is faster than it's ever been, but I think we probably always thought that as well.
Overseeing the plant's closure is not something any manager would want to do, but Will Jeffrey has steered staff through this process.
We all knew that the Aberthaw Power Station was coming towards the end of its life, and for those of us who've worked here for decades, then that's quite sad and poignant. But at the same time, I think we can kind of look back on our 60 years of history and be proud of Aberthaw's place in the community, its place in the economy, and its place in the history of industry in South Wales.
Areas of the station once loud and bustling with activity have fallen quiet. As the sun sets on Aberthaw's chapter in the story of Welsh industry.